with Chief, serving up history. We're going to do a little talking about Bonfaka, and we're going to do a little talking about West Florida. And we have some more guests coming on later through the month. That's going to be actually helping to bring about a better understanding, or help us to better understand how the universities teach about the historical areas. It's one of the things I want to bring in, because your learning comes from the university or through your local schools. So one thing I would like to see with Cooking with Chief, serving up history, is to see stuff making it into the schools and making it into our universities. And y'all know we had a student on that was very excited about going through walking backwards in history for her family, which she felt was something very important to her. And I can understand that because it's important to me. When I see Bonfaka or Shafunka, I'm starting to get like the old people. I get excited when I see it, but then I want to know, what are people saying about it? Normally, it's not about us. It's normally about something somebody's trying to sell, or some business that incorporates it, or some contractor that come through, a builder or developer, whichever way you want to call it, and they want to just put the name on a street sign. So it makes the Indian history look like waterway, highway. Neither one of them lead nowhere for us but dead end streets. So I would like for Cooking with Chief, serving up history, not to be a dead end street. And I want to talk about, I know what I'm talking is controversial to some, educational to others. It's according to what side you fall on. Were you the part of the conqueror, or were you part of the sufferers? Whichever way, because I'm not going to say the conquered. Got to get that straight, because I still don't feel like I'm conquered. I feel that I have oppressed periods in my life, and my people had oppressed periods in their life due to the oppressor. And a lot of people want to look at you, and I'm going to always say this to get it into your heads. When you see my color, that does not mean slavery. What it does mean is a long struggle, for sure. Anyone in dark skin have had a lifetime of struggles. And being that we have had these struggles, people have to start asking, what was the struggle about? Why are we still struggling? If there was, for the slaves, if there was an Emancipation Proclamation that's supposed to free slaves, why are we in 2022 still dealing with racism and Indians on reservations? I'm not talking about all Indians. I want to get y'all clear. I'm talking about the 5 civilized tribes that they classified 5 civilized tribes, and I still don't get the understanding why were they classified civilized. I got my own opinions, but I want to find the facts. What I want to talk about basically is who control the narratives. And our narratives have been controlled by the same people that we have been oppressed by. So people of color have been, when you see it, it means slavery, or it means raped by a master, and all of these things. And if you see a black Indian, it means mixed with the Indian. We just need to wring out our sponge, back up what we're talking about, and let's look and let's do a little walking. While I'm talking, I'm going to be bringing up about some pictures and stuff that's up here with me, and some you may not can see right now because the display, as it's growing, there's a story to these pictures. But we have brought an addition of a few pictures in, and one of them is, we had brought it in a while back, hadn't talked about it. One of it is Choctaw Indians, and they were within that region of the West Florida, or should I say the Western District. And see, we got to remember West Florida, Western District of the Choctaw people. And Bonfaka was huge. And as we go on, you're going to get to see how big Bonfaka is. So we're going to be showing you the size Bonfaka was to where Bonfaka is now. And being that Bonfaka was the head of the Choctaw Nation, even with Father Ruquet, we're going to bring in and show what he had to say as a person living here with our people. As I said, Tanema was baptized by Father Ruquet. And then why do people use the word Lacombe for the tribe? And why are they saying Lacombe Choctaw? And if you go back in history, you're not going to see no Lacombe Choctaw, Bayou Lacombe Choctaw. You're going to start seeing that more when people come in and begin writing. And you start to see in Bonfaka, it's starting to be eliminated even in the 1800s. And then we need to go into a study on why was Bonfaka and why was it important to erase Bonfaka and settle for a name Lacombe. Well, one, Lacombe is not historically in the books prior to the writings with Father Roquette mentioning stuff of Lacombe, but he also mentioned Bonfaka, and he also mentioned Chapatula. And Chapatula's is in Metairie. Y'all keep remembering that. That's in Metairie, which is right across the lake. And what Father Roquette was talking about was the area that was still considered at that time Indian villages. Chapatula was a name of a chief. So that would be for a European or outside person to come through and say, okay, that's Chapatula village. Okay, as referring to who the chief was, the name is picked up, not a different tribe. Villages. So Chapatula was a village. Abita Spring had villages. All these was the same people. So as we go on into this series, looking back, moving forward, you will find out that Bonfaka was huge. Bonfaka was here before there was a Slidell, a Lacombe, a Mandeville, a Madisonville. None of those things existed. They come about through being conquered and explored and conquered by newcomers coming to the area who gave these names to these places. But what name was here was Bonfaka. And we're going to go farther into those things. We have added to the display, since Bonfaka is so big, we're going to cover Bonfaka eventually up here historically. Not to what it ended up over here by me. This is the latter end of Bonfaka. What was the size and the range of Bonfaka is something we're going to be showing you within maps so you can kind of get a picture of it. Pretty much like I was doing with the universities for years, letting them see West Florida, British West Florida, Spanish West Florida. You got to visualize these places not as they is today. So we're going to do some mapping, time changing on maps. Where was Louisiana when this was West Florida? Where was Louisiana line? Maps. The Choctaw people, the Creek people, I said over and over, my grandfather told me they was the same people. So up here, we starting to bring in who were being classified as Creek. So we have a picture that we bring in now. Is over here on this side over here. This picture is going to represent, letting you see the color of, in 1800, what did the Creek Nation look like in Oklahoma? To me, they look like what they looked like when they left here. Now, today, something happened. And I keep saying we need a federal intervention or federal investigation into what happened to the Indians that look like us. Some of this stuff the government may already know. They may already was looking into it. We don't know. But I'm asking for an answer. Because it's no difference than the Holocaust with the Jews. People wanted an answer. It's no different than what's happening in these other countries now, that people were killed or their land taken over. And a lot of times it be people move into the area that can get away with stuff. And what I want to talk about, if they looked at like this in Oklahoma, they left here looking like that, get to Oklahoma, because at the age of some of these people in this picture, they were born here in East or West Florida, because they're Creek Indians, which some people want to call them Colapisa. Choctaw people, they want to call them Colapisa. I think Colapisa got stuck there like Suminer got stuck there. Because if you ask a Suminer Indian what makes a Suminer, you're going to end up with Choctaw people, and you're going to end up with Creek Indians. And then some people say about the Africans that came down. Well, these have to be some mighty breathing Africans. If every Indian that's dark at one time belonged to a mixture with the Indian, okay, I'll buy that. But how do they change their race and ethnicity and the figures of their faces and their eyes, and how do your whole person change? I guess we evolved. You know, I was listening to someone laughing on the thing that night because I had just did it on my show talking about the monkey and the monkey evolving, and black people come from monkeys because these people started putting on the internet, black people come from monkeys, and the Darwin theory, they can keep it. But it was so funny because they were making a joke out of Herschel Walker because he asked that same question the other day. So I'm like, Herschel, you haven't heard my show yet because we haven't released it. So more than me is wondering how people evolving, and then all of a sudden it stopped because Herschel Walker asked that question. They laughed at him instead of listening at what the man was saying. I'm not into Herschel Walker as a political person nor a ball player, but the man asked a question and everybody took it for a joke. But it's something that was put into the science books and taught in the United States to children of all colors. So if we know this monkey thing, you're laughing at it now, when are we going to remove the Darwin theory from our educational system? Because we are raising not only white, black, Asian, whoever kids, Indian, go to school, we're raising some dumb children by teaching them a Darwin theory. Back in the days, maybe Darwin could get away with that. This day and time, we have too much scientific studies to come up with people evolving. But some people take it as a joke, and other people take it as reality. And those who take it as reality end up raising their children thinking one group of people came from a set of monkeys. Well, that can go both ways. We both can play that theory game. I don't think none of us came from monkeys, even though they got Neanderthal. But in the Bible, it speaks of another species. So we're going to leave that alone for a later day. But when we're looking at people today, I keep saying, and Herschel Walker said it too, I don't see the monkey changing halfway. I don't see one at the zoo. Okay? There's no way we got a monkey all of a sudden just stop evolving. So that's one of those things we need to take. Get that junk out the books and educate the children to something that makes sense. Maybe that'll give back some human respect. But we want to make one group look like they're an animal. You had people calling, not only myself, but they even called Michelle Obama a monkey. Everybody thought it was funny, that laughed at it, but those who didn't took it very serious because it showed the sickness that's still in America and the racism that's still in America. And when people of color, even sometimes they can go to the opposite on their theories. So both sides come up with some crazy things, and we're confusing people instead of helping them. We all can learn together. We all can reprogram our minds from that which cannot be found factual or stuff that was written underneath a narrative of a racist person. In my research, and I was amazed the other night, I saw a book, it just pops up sometime. But there was a book and the guy did the study and it was printed in 2001. I'll come back with that on a show later because he went very in depth. And he was talking about some of the same stuff I've been talking about for years. So he was a white professor from the United States who had then traveled the world in areas that had then been explored or conquered. And he wrote a very in-depth book on this, which, you know, we always talk about a book library I have where I tell people, let's study together in our books. This is a book I think people need to read. I'll bring that up on the next recording. But one thing I liked about in this book, he talked about some of the same things I've been trying to tell you all. What is the controlling point of this racism? Where do it stop? Well, if we don't educate ourselves, it's never going to stop. And if we keep passing phony stories down, it's going to continue and just keep rolling from generation to generation. But one thing, how I came across that book, I have been studying for a long, long time before the internet, trying to figure where to get a grip on the whole Indian, indigenous, black, the whole downside of where this stuff going. And what did the Emancipation Proclamation benefit to the Indians or anyone else in America? And what I kept running into is the Confederacy. And what part the Confederacy played in removing the Indians from these lands here. And a lot of people argue, oh, the Confederate flag was a part of history. No, American flag is still Confederate flag is still a part of America still today. It's not something of the past. And it wasn't about just hatred. I want y'all to really understand that Confederate flag represents more than just racism. It actually represents a time when you had people who was controlling the South. Yes, they did have slaves. Yes, they were more than just white people. There were black people who fought in Confederates. There are soldiers, black Indian soldiers that fought under the Confederate flag. Bringing some pictures on board on that the next time. Let it grow. Bringing the good, the bad, and the ugly. So there were Indians who fought on the Confederate, but there also was Indians that was on the British side, the Spanish side, and the American side. So the Indians was on all sides, so was the black communities. According to what part of the line you fall under, you fell under another territory. So normally a person going to fight most probably with the area where they are at, trying to protect their family and their home and their farms. Your agriculture was a number one thing. That was your food source. That was your business. That was the only way for you to make it. And without protecting your agriculture, which during these wars, the first thing they was attacking was people farms and burning them out so that people didn't have food. I remember one of my cousins, he was a little older than my grandfather, and he was telling us that they would dirty the water. And if you didn't have a well, you were stuck with trying to get water, because back then people hauled water with buckets. So you had these artesian wells that have been down here for years where water would run out of rocks and stuff. So those type things didn't get damaged too much. But if you had water holes where your animals had to be watered, they would throw poison weeds in the water so that the water be poisoned to you and to your animals. So there was a lot of poison weeds here. So still a lot of poison weeds that could, developers don't finish tearing them down when they're tearing the good stuff down. Most probably they'll leave the poison weeds like they're the poison weeds that's coming to our area. But, and I don't feel bad about saying that. Destruction is destruction. And the military, Father Roquette witnessed some of these burning down the homes and burning down the farms and destroying the water. But what we fail to realize is where they are talking about. A lot of time they was talking, there was not a Mississippi state, like I keep saying. There was a Mississippi River. So I see a lot of people focus on the Choctaws and the Creeks come out of Mississippi. They come out of Alabama. Well, there were no Mississippi, Alabama. So your history starting with Mississippi, Alabama, that means your history is only starting after we were brought in by decree. I hear very few people want to tell a history when they go beyond the early 1800s. When they start to go to the 1700s, like I told y'all that day, most time things stop at 1619. I saw a guy on TV who's a prominent person. He had a 1619 hat on his head. I'm like, okay, maybe that's the part that he's dealing with. But why not about 1513? The history, you got a lot of stuff that's recorded from 1513. So everybody got a time slot they stop at. We need to go all the way back to 1513 and walk our way up. It takes, now they have you going to school for 12 years. For regular school, 12 years, you don't even get much history taught no further than most probably the beginning of the United States. When you start learning about George Washington and stuff. What was here before George Washington? This was a place. The mounds is saying 11,000. I'm saying it even longer. But right now we got one piece of evidence that the earth have given us. And that piece of evidence we dealing with right now at this time is the 11,000. Next thing coming along may give us 20,000. But right now we're going to focus on just 11,000 years. And we don't want to talk about but from 1800 to now. Some people want to talk from 1619 to now. And even when we talk about it, we don't want to go totally in depth. We don't want to tell people the map changes. We don't want to tell people the direction of Louisiana, sometimes going this way, sometimes it's going this way. We talking in a bubble of like all of this stuff is like it is now out there. We're talking as if there have not been no reapportionment and redividing of the land. We're talking like there was no battle between France, Spain, Britain, and America. Every time there was a battle, lines changed. So when we're reading history with a time thing, we need to go to the timeline. See what it looked like. Prior to 1808, where I'm sitting now was West Florida. Now, even though you changed the lines, but you didn't remove the people, okay? At first you just changed the lines. You created other states. You changed names of places. You know, Bonfaka had its own post office and all this stuff. Train depot. Slidell gets here in 1888 and have over-dominated Bonfaka and everything else around it. Expand, expand, expand. Well, that's how they expanded from the 13 colonies, just kept expanding westward. And they did this with us here. Slidell just keep coming down 190 west. Expanding westward. What do these European black and white people have about going west? Go back home. Because you come here, you want to name something here, the place you ran away from. Now you erase our history. Then you create a history. And then we're supposed to accept it and be happy. Right now, they done taught people about some kind of Bering Strait. But if it was Bering Strait, why this wasn't showing in the early recordings of the history? Is when somebody got ready to take over the Indian community, they changed the narrative. Majority of this junk that we have came from white institutions who were controlled by who? They got land patent colleges. By then, the racism and the cover-up for the Confederacy, and I'm calling it out, the Confederacy. The Confederacy controlled a lot that was done in the South. Confederacy controlled the books. I'm not even just going way back. We can just come to Woodrow Wilson, I keep telling y'all. Woodrow Wilson changed the whole structure of books and began his series of whitewashing. We have had presidents, James Madison, him and C.C. Claiborne. They was the reason we were brought in by decree. So it was the President of the United States and the Governor of Louisiana. At that time, Louisiana was on the other side of the river. But this little portion over here, we got brought in by decree. Why? Because James Madison, C.C. Claiborne, was all a part of the Andrew Jackson era of power. No different than people saying about Donald Trump right now. Donald Trump have manipulated a power not only into the workforce, the community, the university, the politics. This is not the first time. This is not the first time people of color joined forces to try to destroy the people who already was on their land. So this is not, you can hear me going back and forth, white people, black people. Well, let's do this. Some of the white people were dark. There were dark European, light, fair complected European. White was a privilege, black was a curse. Black laws meant you had nothing. You was not represented. You didn't have no representation. You just had labor. or property. Whatever you had, they could take it. That power came from the doctrine of discovery. Doctrine of discovery came through the Catholic Church. I keep saying the Pope went to Canada, but the Pope need to come down in his Gulf Coast. Down on this Gulf Coast, they got more junk hitting us from the past, more than the tornadoes and the hurricanes that's coming across that water. Our disaster have been people. So to tell the real history, I was sitting down watching the whitewashing in different countries. That means everywhere you go, everybody gonna look the same, and everybody gonna steal this one history, bring it there. It's gonna be nowhere. You don't even need to travel after a while. There's gonna be no difference. There's gonna be no uniqueness for you to admire from one culture to the next, because you're gonna destroy the culture. Ain't no need come and eat to New Orleans so much you're gonna get that southern food and gumbo and all that junk. Because you're not gonna have that. The Cajun food. Cajuns need to stop some of them trying to be Indian now. They run in two markets, the Cajun market and the Indian market. I guess whichever win. And it might sound cruel what I'm saying, but you need to have been down here in Louisiana to see the racism that even a Cajun had against a person of color. I can bring you some documents of some of them that have been federally recognized. And in their own recognition paper, they did some low-down nasty slurs on, we never been with black folk. We never was around dark people. We stayed within ourselves, right? How are you classifying yourself as a Choctaw or Choctaw? And this is what they were looking like. And ain't none of these people was made off of rape or none of this. How? And if you go to the archives, like I've been telling people for many years, pull the pictures. So somewhere somebody's lying if they say they never crossed paths with darkness, and then they say they are a Choctaw or they Seminole or they are Creek. Because that's not the truth. Andrew Jackson was out to wipe out the black race of Indians, which was below the 31st parallel. Some of the other tribes had been mixed on the East Coast, up in the northern end by the Dakotas, out on the western end. This was the last place to be conquered for the West. Below the 31st parallel, East and West Florida. East Florida got conquered first. West Florida was still fighting. So we need to really study these histories. If it's not in your history book in school, then you need to start saying we need new books. That's what I'm saying. But with the power of the internet, like I told you, just call it up. Google it. Ask Alexa. The technology of computers have better intelligence than the average school teacher that's teaching school today. The teachers got to go ask Alexa. The teachers have to go Google. Start using the technology that they made before they turn it off. Because what they did is change the library from being a book into a library that is command by your voice in your house. Easy. There is no reason for a person who cannot read not to be able to have a book read to them thanks to technology. There is no excuse for ignorance right now. None. People choose to be ignorant. Culture is an important thing to protect. That's why United States and every state have culture, art, and tourism. Culture is a place, a unique thing to that place, that when you lose that culture, you actually lose that place. Art can be from food. Art could be the clothes that you wear. Art could be a mound. So you destroy the art, destroy culture. Tourism. Tourism is nothing but people coming to see the things that's there worthwhile, spending your money to come and see. I'm not going to travel to eat a pot of red beans when I know how to cook a pot of red beans. But it'd be nice to eat the red beans in an environment that actually was one of their main focus was red bean and rice. And I would like to be able to go out and see me maybe on the bayou some signs of remembrance of what used to be there. Not what you put in there now, what used to be there. I would like to see the culture of the people, not a race of people that you creating and say these are the people. So people need to quit whitewashing this stuff. They've been whitewashing and whitewashing and whitewashing. Not only here, even in other countries. That's what I liked about this man's book. He showed that they went around the world and still doing it. Whitewashing and changing cultures. So when you do that, you change the history. And I keep saying St. Tammany Parish for a reason because I live here. But a lot have came out of West Florida. West Florida have produced, can I say the East and West Florida, produced the top movements in this country. Civil Rights Movement, SCLC, Google it. Birthplace, West Florida. What spot? New Orleans, Louisiana, on this side of the river. Bus boycott, Baton Rouge, this side of the river. Under Jemison and Reverend Alexander them was the first bus boycotts that actually gained a lot of leverage before the bus boycott of Montgomery. Oops, Montgomery. Where is that? West Florida. Let's stop using the names they're using now. Let's use the names it used to be. West Florida is a powerful place. And East Florida, we can't leave it out because East Florida had St. Augustine over there with that fort kicking butts. Indians looked like this was working in fields. Not just no slaves, because remember they was first slaves. Some of them, the Indians, not none of these was all free. But the ones that they used for slavery first. You know, it'd be kind of hard to slave Chief Warhorse. They'll have a dead master every morning. They'll have to sell me every week. Because my master will not be here. Promise you that. Because that is not human to labor another person against their will and beat them. And soon my master would have hit me. I've been sitting in the corner trying to figure out how I'm going to knock him out. Or her. And that's the kind of people I came from. They didn't even go to Oklahoma. Why? There was that kind of people. Now, you cannot look like this. And all of a sudden, you go to another state and make a drastic change. So, are somebody trying to tell me they killed all the Indians that looked like me and kept all the people that was white Indian? We need to find out. As a part of American history, I want to know. What happened to Indians look like this? But these are the kind of Indians that farmed and raised food and fed the Irish. They looked like this. They were the ones who had the farms. Father Roquette said it was very rich with food. All of a sudden you're Indian and you don't even know how to plant a garden. I don't see nowhere it says about a casino. Nowhere. So first thing somebody walk up to you got a casino? They never ask you, do you have freedom? They never ask you, do you have any of your possessions? Or are you trying to protect some of your possessions from the past? First thing they think, Indian, casino. And a lot of people that's fighting to be Indians and getting recognized are looking at a casino. But there are money that could be made for the Indian community and the other community off of real tourism, real truth. Even educating a child properly is a way of income. Because if you have the child geared with the proper equipment, they can do a proper job. But if we're going to downplay the kids on ignorance, they leave here and go to another country. When they get to the other country, nothing lines up with what they've been taught here. So we're dumbing down our people. Okay, there was a thing, bring that book too. This book was presented to me, it was from Times Magazine. I have one of the original copies, it was presented to me when I was in Arkansas. I want to bring it to, or I'm going to scan them pictures and share them with you so you can see what Time Magazine had to say. They began buying pictures to save this, Indians that looked like this. And they did a whole edition when they saw the whitewash coming. So Time Magazine began to buy some of the most top collected photos. Um, Someone was there to take pictures when they were killing the Indians too, because Time have some bodies just stacked up where they putting them in the mass graves. But they bought those pictures. And the gentleman that shared this with me said, I had not seen an Indian look like you, because he saw me on TV in Arkansas. He said, unless I look in my Time magazine collection, and then I see you. He said, but I want to give you this book. Because he felt, and this was a white gentleman, came from a prosperous family. He said, I'm not going to give you all of my collection, but I'm going to give you this particular book so you know that they know the truth. And I asked him, who is they? He said, I don't know, but somebody is altering history. And Time Magazine knew it way back. But we wasn't listening. Just like they laughing at Herschel Walker about the monkey. And then through the universities, the kids leave home one thing, and by the time they get to college, someone else's agenda is put on our children. They come back wearing kipper cloth and everything else and don't even know what kipper cloth is. Had never heard of Africa. But I would like to see, I was saying about St. Tammany Parish, I would like for St. Tammany Parish to be a role model of bringing back culture, art, and tourism for real. There's a reason, I want y'all to look it up. Why do United States concentrate on culture, art, and tourism? When we actually allowing people at local levels to destroy culture, art, and tourism. Culture, art, and tourism is the most powerful thing to keep a place intact. And when you destroy that, you destroy the place. So what people don't realize, they have destroyed us to an extent. But now you live here with us. So when they come to destroy us, they're going to destroy you. When they flood me out, they're going to flood you out. When they decide to take your place by eminent domain because they want to run a street through it, they'll do it to you too. They did it to my people. What make us think each time a new group come, they're not going to see you as the person that they got to remove? That's how we got in this jail. Those that came wanted my people gone. Now today, those that come want to see whoever here gone. A new group is coming along. A new group of discoverers with ideas of what they can do along these waters and how they can develop it and make it prosperous and make something rich. It has nothing to do with the people. People locally want to be able to have some culture that we can enjoy. We want to be able to tour some other places as well as here. I think people need to tour Louisiana first. If you're from Louisiana, tour Louisiana. I'm not doing a tourist commercial. I've been taking my kids on trips around the country ever since they was young. Because if you go to a place and you visit it, go find about the people that lived there and what was their hardship. See what kind of foods they like. That's nice. My daughter traveled all over the country and I'm always asking her, what is their main foods? What do they like over there? Is it noodles, rice, eggs, what? And a lot of times she'll just send me tons of pictures of different types of food. And she was like, Mama, come go travel with me a little bit. Nope, I'm staying grounded here. It's hard to stay with my foot on the ground here, letting on getting up, going to another country. Because when I leave here, somebody else is going to take my spot. Send me some pictures. So I like to travel through pictures. Some of y'all, Google them out. Travel with some pictures. You can learn a lot. But we'll go back to these pictures over here. Where did these people go? Where did their descendants go? I'm still here with my people, but we invisible. Totally invisible. You know, I look at Mama Tatine. She lived right up the road from me. This is my grandfather, auntie. And when I look at her, I don't see Asian. I don't see white. I don't see African. And I haven't figured out how to get a DNA to say you're a slave. And what makes you a slave? When people see, okay, well, slave mentality. You know, what anybody have done or what they have really accomplished, they're scared of America when every black person wanting reparation. They already have to deal with the Indians. Now you got the black people wanting their reparation. You came out better if you would have left from an Indian and just gave them a piece of their land back, because now they want slave money. I find that very funny. And I have nothing against if they get it. Because somebody stole their identity and they have a lot of people lost and don't know where they belong and where they fit. So if you got to pay them 2 times, that's your fault. Because you should have never allowed the Confederacy to come in and control the narrative. And that's going to be a whole story. We're going to do a show on Confederacy and white supremacy. That show is going to be dynamite because you really need to dig in on that. I wanted to add it to the looking back, moving forward, but it's so much on that topic of Confederacy that we have not touched in our history books. And there's so much on what is white supremacists. And, you know, it's like Confederacy, if it was a math problem, it would be like this. Confederacy plus white supremacy equals systemic racism. Did you get that math problem? Now, to get to that, you have to have some other little numbers. Because when you say Confederacy, that's a large group of number. When you say supremacy, that's a large, powerful group of people also. So we got power and power. Okay, but what you have to go back underneath the power and see what numbers we're dealing with. Did they start adding up by ones, or did they add it up by fives, or did they use it by tens? Or was it by hundreds or by 1,000? Well, we're going to go back. They added it up by racism. They added it up by miseducation and miscommunication. And then with that, you get ignorance. So those equal Ku Klux Klan. See, so it's 2 parts of the problem. Then you got to come back and take this problem. So the problem got a way you work across here. And we're going to work this problem too. And then it works this way. And then you take the total of the Ku Klux Klan, and then you take the total of systemic racism, and then you add those 2 things up, and let's see what it equals. And it equals destruction. Okay? Cannot get positive out of none of that. None of it. Lying, conniving, cheating, and murdering, and raping, and all that's in that circle. Misleading, misguiding. Don't want nobody to get along. Don't want nobody to have nothing. Just look at with Prince Harry. He married a woman who got a couple of drops, not a lot. She don't even have enough black for you to see it. If her mama wouldn't walk out with her, you wouldn't even know she got black blood in her. But somewhere they dig down through and they not, she's too black. So then her kids is gonna be too black. So racism is around the country. But you know what I found is never racial? Black people money. Nobody says, I don't want the money came from black people. Black people don't have to pay no light bill because they come from black people. Black people don't have to pay for that stuff because they come from black people. Black dollar spend. So either way, it will go back to economics. It go back to culture, art, and tourism. Culture, art, and tourism creates a need for housing, creates a need for stores, it creates a demand. Those ships wasn't sailing in the 1700 and the 1500 because they just was out on a cruise ship. Nope, they was moving goods across the water. It was economics. Locally here, I'm finding it hard as St. Tammany grow. I don't see anything developed to make any money. So where do people live that make money? Unless you're going to go to Burger King for half price, part-time, or McDonald's, or even Walmart closed early now. They used to have 3 shifts. They don't have 3 shifts. They don't have a need for it because the 1%ers is in control. And they can determine the store hours. So they don't have to open up because we're going to run there like fools anyway and get in time, whatever time slot they give us, we're going to line up to get what we know we need. So that's a form of control. So people think just black folks and Indians being controlled, but everybody's being controlled in America right now. People say, well, it's the United States. I don't say it's the United States. I say it's the business people. They making the money. The United States is broke. So your culture, your art, your tourism, your development, your minerals, like our oil or gas. Those things is all we got to work with to create funding. So, as an Indian, would I rather a casino versus building my wealth off of preserving stuff? I would rather keep what I'm doing. It's more important for people to be able to come and see and share it in the future when I'm dead and gone than it be destroyed for somebody else to get rich. And that's the end of the beauty. So preservation is important to me. But preservation also come along when you have the truth and know what need to be preserved for the next generation. We should not just take advantage of what we see now and don't think about what's going to be here for the next generation. They need clean water. They need trees. They need space to just enjoy. At one time, Louisiana was the sportsman paradise. We just say we sports now. We ain't no paradise. Paradise got cut down and thrown away. St. Tammany Parish was hunter's paradise for real. Now we starting to hunt for safety. Why? As more people come in, the culture changes. Culture here was you can leave your door open, you can leave your car running in the parking lot, go in the store. Everybody at the store just about knew everybody. Now there was a social differences here. That was a class separation. That was a racial difference, but you stay on your side of the track, I stay on mine. But now we got a new group of people coming in here, bringing in the North, the West, the East, and even some from the South that don't share the same cultural values that we shared over here. And what they don't understand is, why move to a place if you're not going to insist to help preserve some of the beauty? Isn't that what brought you there? Another thing they don't understand, if crime move into an area, everybody be put into prison. So we need to come up to the standard. Our people that went through the crime over here, where people just going around killing folks. We done been through that. But if this is what other people are looking for and not willing to work together, tell the truth, and let's clean this junk up, it's going to be nowhere for nobody to live. They're going to be just like my people, invisible, gone. Who's coming next? Now, I want you to do this for me. Best way to learn is see for yourself. I need you to Google or call Siri or call Alexa on this here for me. Ask Siri and Alexa to give you some of this information. Ask them to explain to you what is racism. Don't go with what you think you know because you didn't read. No. I want you to get this fresh in your head. And ask Alexa or Google, what is destruction? And you'll start seeing the similarity between the two. None of them is going to give you anything good. But what I really want you to go into doing a little research on, go check. Go back to 1513. I'm going to keep on throwing this at you all because y'all not going to keep staying stuck in the 1800s. And in the areas that you live, ask Alexa and to give you the tourist attractions for your area. If you go learn the tour, you'll start seeing some history. And if you go see it now, you'll be able to be a witness when somebody trying to change it. But if you don't go witness it, you ain't gonna even know it changed. So tour your community, tour your state, so you know what's there before it's too late and it's gone. Moundville is an example of a place that I love to go to ever since the 70s. And I went and it got whitewashed on me real quick right after Katrina. So when I went to look for the stuff that looked like me, it was out there by the water. I think they're getting ready to throw it overboard because it's right to the water. They just hoping a storm come through, pick it up on a wave and take it back out, and they'll never put it back up again. Get your children, get your cameras, start touring your area. Ask questions. Call your tourist commission. Ask them to give you history of your area. Make it available. If history locally is not being taught in our schools, we need to start demanding that local history, factual history. Don't go get these people that moved from New York City running around because we got a man up in Lacombe running around with a little plaque back his head. He came here selling cars with the car company. And he's the expert on Indians and have collect more artifact and history stuff from people under the pretense of using it for a museum. And I don't even have to call his name. One day I am, though. But right now I have to call his name because you know who I'm talking about if you live here. And then you got another one he digging in the graveyard. And it makes me wonder why all these grave robberies took place after this person came through the cemeteries of the black communities. And got some good news for y'all too, Mike. Will and them, the cemetery that I thought that the old people took me to, we found out today the old people had the funeral for Will's auntie, brought the picture, and I knew one of the old people would just say, bye bye. Nope, it was a whole lot of them. Says, yep, that's the cemetery. When the white people moved in, they start dumping stuff on our cemetery. Well, I've been going over to that cemetery with Will and them, and that was something that Cottonmouth wanted us to do, was save the old Indian burials. So I'm here to tell y'all we're going to be asking Mississippi to put a marker on that burial ground and asking the government to put it under protection because it was an Indian burial and still is. Just so happened, Will's grandmother, one of them that, and his grandfather, who we had a picture of, which we're going to make available for the exhibit when we do the Mississippi exhibit side, they're buried in there. So we done been there more than one time, but it was amazing to see that that picture was exactly that Indian cemetery. So we're getting people to digging in their communities, talking to the older people, saying, tell me where this is, and they could just tell you just like that. So if you want to have a good year this year, gather some old information, research, Google, whatever. Gather these things, get them on your phone or your tablet, get with your older people and ask them what this place meant to them. If you have an older person in your community and that person is not your family member, still ask them. And they're going to guide you to places that you can go and tour in your own community. So I'm challenging people to learn where they're at this rest of this year. I think we need to take this year, and if you live in Slidell, you say, research Slidell so you know where Slidell come from. You should be able to answer that. What year it was founded, who was founded by, everything. Otherwise, you're living in a place and don't know where you're at. And I hate to say that, that's the whole same thing for America. Do a little research on America. Living in a place, you don't know where you're at. But before you think everybody's dark is a slave or descendant of slavery, then that means to me when I hear it, you're not from here. You a foreigner in somebody else's land trying to determine. It's like me going to China trying to say whatever going on in China. The best expert on China is the Chinese people. Best expert, I was talking to one of my friends the other day, the Queen of Hawaii was dark as I am, or maybe darker. Her dad was darker than me. What happened to him? Oh, she got locked up, put in exile. Nobody want to tell that story about Hawaii. Well, you know, Hawaii is a part of the United States. That's why I jumped over there too. They part of the United States. But when you go on these trips and tours, these magazines need to start putting some of this stuff in it. So you can have key places to go visit and learn. So when you go to Hawaii, you should have the first family of Hawaii picture in your travel book. So you know what was versus what's now. That's why I say we're looking back to move forward. Otherwise, all y'all that's traveling around the country, taking all these trips, cruises, you're wasting your time and your money. And you're getting older and you're going to be dumber. Because a lot of the stuff that's out there has no facts to it. It's put together artificially to get your money. Culture, art, and tourism does not have to be like that. If I'm going to spend my money, I want to see something worth me spending my money to go see. Something I can bring my children to. And it had to be something mighty beautiful over here because a lot of ships was coming this way since 1513. But if we tear it up, there's not going to be anything for no other ship to come to but a mess. So I want to close today with, we're going to hit off on these pictures. We're going to keep letting these pictures grow. I was talking to my daughter the other day. She said, how many pictures you want? How many of you see yourself getting? More than we're going to put on this stage. There's going to be, and I have a gentleman constantly asking me for an exhibit. I want to stay in historical West Florida. And if it's not out of West and East Florida and moving into Oklahoma, on the trails of so-called tears. And somebody can say, she said so-called tears. Yeah, because a lot of old people didn't even cry. They went on their own. They had a choice. And some didn't want to go, and they had a choice. But when you make a choice to go somewhere, and you gave up everything you had in one place to go to another place, and that was a lie, now that's where the problem come in. They wasn't crying about the trail, they were crying about the lie. And then people still crying about the lie. But we're going to start looking. Don't just take my word. Start researching about these Indians. Those of y'all want to go on a nice trip, go to Washington. Don't just go on the internet because you might not believe it. Go to archive for yourself and see what's in there. And you know, when we talk about go to archives and museums in Washington and stuff in New York, you don't need to have to go see the Indians. Go see the boats. Go see the bricks, the silk, the lumber that was building places. And let's really for sure do our homework. I remember I was telling you about the buffaloes. You was like, there's no buffaloes came down left. Yep, they did. My grandpa said they had buffaloes. And his grandpa said they got fewer. And his grandpa said he saw them going. So that's 3 grandpas up. And they, my grandpa said, by the time I came, there was maybe a small handful drift down to the salt. We lived down here where they say Salt Bayou. And animals would come down and get healed. Like people would leave Europe and come here to get in the salt water. Like presidents would leave Washington, D.C. Miss Webb was telling us, and they would go to Mississippi to get in the salt water. Cousin Martha said they would come down and she'd feed them at her restaurant so they could go way in the salt water to get well. And some of the biggest mafia systems was right along the Gulf Coast. And even the mafia could be a witness for us if they want to. They know what was down there. Yeah. Catholic Church can be a witness for us. They know what was down there. And the United States can be a witness because they know what's in their archives. So does the Catholic Church. If the United States want to lead this curse of the disappeared or the invisible image of the black Indian, we don't even need to put another in God we trust or God bless America nowhere. Because it was the God that created everything. He's not going to bless you for misusing his people. No more than he would bless if we were doing it to somebody else. Nobody should ever do what have been done to my people. And I don't care even if it's the people from slaves. The slaves eventually got out. Some of them, Oprah says she's supposed to be a descendant of slavery. A lot of them. They making money doing good. They slaves drove out. They done African us out. But have you ever looked back to the Indians that helped save the slaves? It ain't no image of who did it. They say they escaped to Florida. And Florida looked like this. And we still being punished because we helped. And the Confederates took it upon themselves and said, okay, you helped them. And we've been a punishment and a war to the Confederate system since. I want to see people taking monuments down. Some things we need to have monuments up so we don't forget. I think they got Fort Pike out there. Don't change that name. Leave it Fort Pike so that kids can see a sign and learn the history on Albert Pike. Who was Albert Pike and what did he do to the Indian community? People go to Howard University out the black community, never understanding who Oliver Howard was and what he did to the Indian community. So, we need to Google up Albert Pike. I asked Alexa pull him up. we need to ask Siri or somebody, pull up Oliver Howard. And then next time when we come back, you ought to have some ingredients, or either do like the other ones used to do. Get your own show. When you find the good stuff, it doesn't matter which one of us it come from, as long as it's the truth and facts. And it is not going out to radicalize anyone, to be targeting anyone. What we are doing here with Cooking with Chief, we serving it up. Some of it is hot and spicy. Some of it is sweet as honey. Some of it is so bitter it ties your tongue. But it all boils down to this. What will set all us free is the truth. So, this is a bittersweet situation with Cooking with Chief. Got to give you the bitter to cross out some of the sweet and vice versa. So, life is not all honey here. But what I will tell you, research some of the names you didn't hear me call it. This year, instead of wasting your money on a cruise to a place that you don't know the history of, because maybe sometime you might be going touring and being more of a harm to a place than you are being a blessing. Research the place before you go. Find the locals. Help them with their economy by spending your money with those who are indigenous to the places that you travel. And I'm not talking about with just Chief or Horse. No, I'm talking about wherever you travel. Find the indigenous people. Hear their story so that your money don't keep them being invisible. This has been Cooking with Chief, serving up history. See you same time, same place, same people. We'll just keep growing because we moving forward. We out of here.